Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today is going to be the first video that I'm going to do in the Academic Writing Task 1 series, and we're going to discuss the different task types that you could possibly get for writing Task 1. But before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Michelle Oliver, and I'm an IELTS coach. I work with students who are preparing for the academic writing and speaking sections of the exam. I've helped so many students to pass and get really good results, and even students that had lessons with other tutors or did courses before doing classes with me and failed, actually did well once they took classes with me. And I pretty much only have 5-star reviews. So if you're watching, please comment below and let me know where you're from. What are some of the things that you are struggling with, maybe with task 1? Maybe I can give you some tips on how to improve. And what are your goals? Like, what are your reasons for taking the exam? And why do you need help? Like, is there anything that I can do for you? So anyway, let's dive in to today's video. Task 1, um, from the IELTS exam, especially for academic writing, is a piece of writing where you basically will analyze some data or a graphic and interpret it in the form of writing a report. So you will have a 20-minute time limit for this task. Some of the task types or graphics that you would get would be like a bar graph, a line graph, a pie chart, a table, a map, process diagram, or they might give you multiple charts, which could be a mixture of a few of these. So I'm sure you're wondering what I must be talking about, and it probably sounds like gibberish to you. So especially when you're first practicing for the exam and it's a lot of overwhelming information. Yes, it can sound like really overwhelming, but let's look at each of the task types in a little bit more detail. I'll be showing you each one, and I'm going to share my screen now so that I can show them to you. If you just give me a second, let's get there. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. The first one we'll look at is going to be a bar chart. So let me just open this up. There we go. I hope that you can see my screen. Okay, so this is a bar chart, and it might vary. So as you can see, a bar chart is cut, it's distinguished by these lines that go up vertically. And sometimes there might be just 2 bars next to each other comparing 2 pieces of information, or sometimes 3 or 4. It really depends on the chart. But the idea is that you will see these little sort of rectangular shapes going up like this in the charts. And we have an x-axis, which is this one here, and the y-axis. So it's basically 2 pieces of information. In this chart specifically, we can see it says the title. So what is this graph showing us? It's showing us the frequency of eating at fast food restaurants among people in the USA from the year 2003 to the year 2013. So on the x-axis, we can see like the different times. For example, every day, several times a week, once a week, once or twice a month, a few times a year, or never. And each different colored bar represents each year. So for every day, for example, we have 2003, 2006, and 2013, and the same for each other one here. And then on the y-axis, which is this one, we have the percentage of people. So how many people were eating at fast food restaurants during this time? And here it goes up in percentages from the number 0 it could go all the way up to 100%, but for this one, obviously, they only needed to include it up to 40%. So this is a bar chart. And now I will share a new screen with you to show you the next one. Just give me a second. Okay, so now I'm sharing the line chart with you. And this is basically the line chart. So as you can see, it's basically got lines in it. And there might be a varying number of lines. So it could be anything, from just 1 or 2 lines or 3 going up to 4, 5 or 6. It really depends on the content. So in this one, as we can see, we have a graph showing the percentage of the population and the year. And this is for different countries. So obviously they're showing you the total population for a specific area or specific country each year, basically starting from the year 1970 all the way through to 2040. And this is the percentage. So it starts from 0 going all the way up to 90%. As I said, it could also increase to 100% if, they wished to include that much information. And it's for 4 different countries. As you can see, each line looks different, so that will allow you to see which piece of information is for which country. For example, here's the Philippines with the squares, Malaysia is the diamonds, Thailand is the little asterisks or stars, as some people call them. And the last one is Indonesia with these triangles. So let's see what the next one is. So yes, basically this is a line graph. You'd be analyzing, quantities and the movements, if things are going up or down, and also highs and lows as well. Okay, so the next chart, let's move on. I will be showing you the next one. Let me just share a new screen. Okay, so the next chart I'm going to show you is called a pie chart or a pie graph. So in this one, we can see it says, the pie charts below show the online shopping sales for retail sectors in New Zealand in 2003 and 2013. So in this case, we have online sales, and here's the one for 2003, and this chart shows us for 2013. It's for 4 different categories. So here we can also see some pieces of information: travel, film and music, books, and clothing. And each one is basically a slice of the pie. And so basically, you would be comparing these 2 pieces of information against each other. Okay, so that's basically it for a pie chart. And then let us have a look at the next one, which is, I'm just checking my screen, just 1 second, changing over. The next one will be a table. So a table looks like this. It basically has, little blocks and blocks going down and blocks going across this way to compare different pieces of information. In this chart, we can see it says the table below gives information on consumer spending on different items in 5 different countries in 2002. And so here we can see on the lines going down, they mention the names of the countries. While going across, they mention what they spent money on. So in the first column, it's food, drinks, and tobacco. The next column is clothing and footwear. And the last one is leisure and education. So this is basically what a table could look like. And now let me show you the next one. So all of the ones, just before I do share, I'd like to mention all of the ones I've shown you so far are basically numbers. So you'd be analyzing data and providing numbers and figures and movements. The next two that I will show you are slightly different, and I'll also explain why. Okay, so the next one I'm going to share with you is a map. And normally with the maps, they will show you two maps. So they'll show you one map maybe from the past and then another map, you know, a little bit after that. They might even show you a map that's currently in the present tense and then, you know, a map that might be for future plans, for example. But the idea is that like one map will have, you know, its original state, you know, what things look like in a previous time, and then the changes that happened over time or the changes that they might like to make in the future. And this is basically a map. So you're going to be describing a lot of things related to directions, cardinal points, you know, like for example, north, south, east, and west. The directions on a map, north, south, east and west. Yes. And then the other thing as well, obviously, is the positioning. So, for example, things that are on the left of the river in this map, for example, and maybe things that are on the right-hand side. And then also the changes. So things that have been replaced, things that have been removed, things that have been added on, things that might be extended, and so on. So yes, this is a map, and I hope that it makes sense. We will definitely be going into more detail in future lessons where I will analyze a map with you and you'll get to understand, you know, how you can analyze the map correctly and structure your essay as well. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen again. I'd like to show you another task type that you could possibly get. And this one is actually a process diagram. So in this picture, sorry about it, it's a little bit blurry. Basically, you would have a process. This one is a little bit of a simple one because normally a process goes in a cycle, because once you've started a process, you can complete it and then you can start again. So every process might look a little bit different. And in this case, they're speaking about cement production and concrete production. And basically, when you're speaking about a process diagram, you're also not necessarily going to be describing numbers and data, but you're going to be describing the steps to get something done and how, you know, it gets done. So yes, depending on the question, maybe you'd get an easy one and maybe a little bit more difficult, but this can be one of the more difficult task types, because if you don't necessarily have industry knowledge, you would rely on these little pieces of vocabulary shown in the diagram to be able to create the structure for your answer. So sometimes these can be a little bit more difficult, but we will go through them at a later stage. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen or change the screen one last time, and I would like to show you one final task type that is possible. So it could also be a multiple graph diagram. So basically the first four items I mentioned to you. Number one, bar graph. Number two, the line graph. Number three, the pie charts. And number four, the table. And for this task type, they could mix and match any of those four to create a new question, and you would have to analyze both of them together in one report to do this one. So this one is also not so complicated because you're just, you know, describing numbers, but it can be a little bit because you're having to describe two different diagrams instead of just one, like, the others that I mentioned before. And so it basically means you need to apply your knowledge of understanding each task type and then doing, this one. So I hope that the information I've shared on these is useful. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Just give me a second. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me for the lesson today. I really hope that it was useful. I know that this information might be very basic to some people, but there also are some of you who need help and just understanding the different task types, because I know some of you might not even know where to start or how to start answering the question. So in the next lesson, what we are going to do is we're going to take a look at the marking criteria for the writing task one, academic writing. And we will, in the future, analyze each specific task type and delve deeper into how you can plan them and write each of them on your own. So thank you so much for joining me for today's session. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do it now so that you can get more advice, tips, and tricks in the future. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.